My name is Barry Gower, and I'm a prosthetic makeup designer for film and television. So being a prosthetic makeup designer, I'm basically responsible for the practical special makeup effects, creating character makeups and fantasy characters, and we do an awful lot of trauma and blood and gore as well. I design a lot of the looks for the makeups, and I'm responsible for various parts and various little departments along the way. With almost every project, when we're approached about work, we're usually given the script, or if it's a TV show, we're given an outline of the whole series, and we'll basically sit and read through, break down what might be practical, what is might be digital, and we would basically then have meetings with directors and producers, talk about the characters and see what they think is probably going to be in camera, what work might be done post editorial.
I mean, there are some directors who know exactly what they want, or they've got a specific idea in mind, or maybe they've worked with a concept designer who's come up with some stuff, and you're basically just making it, where you get given a design, you just make it. If it's something like a gory effect, you don't tend to need to do designs. If it's more of a creature, something like Night King, then that will have been designed, or they've done some sketches, or they've done some illustrations.
We would start the design process with concept designs, and sometimes we do maquettes, clay maquettes, which we can show them a three-dimensional sculpture.
Once they like the look of it, then costume are involved, and then other departments are involved. But in the initial instance, it's usually just Barry sending messages, having meetings with the director to decide what they want.
For each of these characters, which has quite extensive prosthetic makeups, they're all bespoke to that actor or that stunt performer, and it involves quite a lengthy process from the design to the sculpture and all the production of the actual prosthetics to then the application on set each day.
So the first thing we do is life cast an actor, most commonly a head, but it can be any body part or a full body. I'd generally lead that, and then we'd get a plaster out of that, which would go to the sculptors. They sculpt their makeup on it, and in the meantime I'll get another plaster out of the life cast mould and make a splayed core. So this is a sculpt on a core. This is the epoxy cores we make for them. You can see it's all laminated with fiberglass on the back. This has been made from a section of the actor's face that I've cast out in plaster. This is a back and side of a head with an ear on it. The sculptor's already put the sculpt on it, and I'm just starting to mould it now. So the first thing we do is cover it with a layer of alginate and then wet tissue to protect it. The next thing will be putting a layer of clay on top of this, and then I'll divide it into sections with steel shim, which is really thin sheet steel, and then I'll fiberglass the whole thing. We'll drill bolt holes in it so it can be bolted back down to the core, trim it, take it all off, then we'd clean the clay out, put the empty fiberglass back on, and then the space where the clay was we fill with silicone, and that's the final mould for the piece.
So you're essentially pouring it into the tube, and where it's higher than the lowest point. Is that all right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just basically a gravity feed.
So the pressure of all the silicone in the tube forces it through the mould, and then it goes out into all the small points of the sculpt. So it fills the mould and creates a cavity just full of silicone. and that's what creates the silicone that's then applied to an actor's face. So that's an impression of someone's stomach, the mould there, and then the outside of the mould has a silicone jacket which has a sculpt on it. So as the void fills with the silicone, it creates that shape with the silicone, and that tone there is the same tone that's going to be coming out when we demould it.
This is the stuff we blend off when we're applying it as a makeup.
The frilly edges here is what you hold on to, then you glue it down, and then you dissolve the edge so it's completely seamless, so you don't see any of that there, it just looks like it's gradiating into the skin.
These are all the different components, the different appliances that make up a complete set of Night King appliances for his makeup. So it's sculpted as a whole, but we separate it for sort of ease of application. The neck appliance is a little bit like a sock, which slips over and covers the entire neck all the way around. We have, this is a back of head appliance with the horns we have on the top there. Then we have a forehead appliance with the horns as well. These both overlap. And then we've got a facial appliance, which is sort of nose and cheeks all in one. And then we have earpieces and a separate little chin appliance as well.
The reason we separate the sculpts is to make it easier to mould and run. Because if you imagine trying to run the whole head, it'd just be impossible. It'd be a mask essentially. So the idea of breaking the makeup down is kind of easier for all departments, you know, so it's easier to mould, run, stick on, stuff like that. There'll be an order of putting this on. Generally, you'll do the neck first for sure.
So it'll be the neck, and then once that's on, you've got a back of head, so that sits on.
If you can imagine, sort of, you put a chin on before the face, and then these edges will sit over the top of this edge.
So there's a nice overlap.
Yeah, so you're kind of covering edges with other edges that all blend on. It all kind of.
It's making it delicate enough that it's seamless, but also durable enough that you can still handle it and still apply it without it falling to bits at the same time. So it's a bit of a tightrope, but yeah, it's to make it so that it's blendable.
What I'm doing here, this is obviously a live cast of a real human hand, pulled out from a two-part mould, and because it's a two-part mould, it means that we've got quite bad seam lines. So I'm just seaming it so that it looks like it's, you know, hasn't been joined together. And then once we've seamed it, we'll paint it all up to look like a real hand. And obviously we have to do that from reference, so we can do it from, you know, we've got lots of books here that we can reference from, but also what's amazing is that we can use our own hands, or, you know, other people's hands. So you can see where the pigment, the redness is, and the veins and things like that, so that definitely helps.
We use a variety of techniques for painting, really. Quite commonly we'll use an airbrush and spray on various inks and pigments, and we also use like a cut down sort of chip brush, something like this, which we literally dip our brush into the paint and literally just flick it all over, which gives us a nice spatter and mottle over the makeup, and that also helps to sort of camouflage any little edges or anomalies that we might have as well, because prosthetics is all about camouflage basically, and cheating the artwork to look like real human flesh.
Something like this would probably be used in maybe like a battle scene, just as like a prop arm. We would probably go out there with it and just maintain it. They tend to get quite battered on set, just to make sure that the paintwork is still on at the end of the day. So a few sort of touch-ups, and we also do a lot of dressing. So especially with something like this, because it's a pretty big wound, making sure that it's all got blood all over it, and it's, you know, looking as realistic as possible throughout the shoot. And it's all fully armatured as well, so it's posable and movable. It's got an armature in there, so you can change its form if you want to. Once it's all painted up and sealed, we'll hair it, and the hair is individually inserted, and And again, we can use our own arms for reference, or someone else's arm for reference. We tend to use real human hair. We have to pre-curl it, so it's got a slight hook to it, and so it just sits quite nicely. But I mean, you'd have to hair punch quite a lot of this arm. It would probably take a good day just to sit there and individually put each hair in.
At the moment, we've got 50 masks, which are for the background extras. So they'll have all the appliances on the guys, the whites that are closer to the camera, and all the main stunt guys. And then just for the ease of time, that it's quicker to have a mask that they can just pull on if it's not going to be shot on closely. They'll have the masks in the background. And some of them are like 3 or 4 seasons old, so we have to refurbish them every year and properly clean them. So at the moment, I'm just hair punching, breaking up the hairline. We stick the wigs on them, but throughout time, the hair gets pulled out that we punch into the front, so we just repunch it in at the end of every season to make them look fresher.
So this character is One the Giant, who's featured in about 2 or 3 seasons of Game of Thrones. He's played by a creature performer called Ian White, who's about 7 foot 1 inches, I think he is. And his makeup's quite extensive. With regards to our department, he has a big full head prosthetic makeup with a big heavy sort of silicone cowl, which weighs quite a lot. Both the head and the shoulders and these gloves, which are made out of silicone, and these zips here, they both attach onto a large sort of lightweight foam, reticulated foam undersuit, which sits under his costume, and it basically distorts his forms and gives this great sort of feeling of perspective. Almost all the shots are looking up at Ian, so it's almost like a pyramid, almost the forms that are created with the undersuit. And then the costume department have made this beautiful costume, which sort of consists of animal pelts and all kinds of leather bits and pieces, and animal bones and all lovely props and things. But the whole thing weighs an absolute ton, and Ian's very fit and healthy, so he's able to sort of carry it all off with much ease. Everything's all very stretchy and pliable, and the gloves are the same material as the facial makeup, but everything moves sort of quite realistically, and these have sort of got little extensions on the fingertips, little fiberglass cups in there, just so we can increase the length of the fingers. We've got full coverage over Ian's head. All the appliances are glued on with a really strong silicone medical adhesive. It's all adhered to the actor's skin, so every little nuance and little movement comes through to the prosthetic on top. And the material's so soft itself, it's softened, we say deadened basically, it's the amount of softener that's in the mix of the silicone, that it just allows full facial movement, sort of no matter how thick the appliance really.
Makeup days are always usually fairly long. The makeup time for something like the Night King is about 4.5 hours. We could be on set from 8 in the morning till wrap maybe 7 in the evening. During the day we'll be making sure that none of the edges lift on the makeup, or just making sure that when they've had lunch and they've got chips stuck in the edge of the piece or whatever they may happen to have, we have to undo all that and just keep it maintained really, to keep the makeup looking its best.
Yeah, one of the best bits about working on things like this is getting to kind of do the process in the workshop from start to finish, and carrying it all the way through onto set and seeing it on camera. It makes it all worth it.
I love the variety in my job. It's always creative, and you get to do such a vast quantity of different things. You can go on from one job, from making someone's old age prosthetics, a different job when you're making a creature it's never been sort of envisioned before.
Everybody who works in this department for Barry, it will always be doing their best for Barry, for the company, but also for themselves, because you know you're as good as your last job, really, in a way.
I think it's the satisfaction of being responsible from designing something two-dimensionally, following the whole process all the way through, really, from doing the sculpture, the mould making, the generating the prosthetic pieces, but actually being there on the day on set as well, and gluing all these bits of rubber to an actor, and actually seeing the filming it's just lovely to be part of the whole process from start to finish.